See Glasgow. See Glasgow's culture. I think it's special. But will this uniqueness be reflected in 1990? Well, let's take a little tour and see for ourselves. In the parlance of Glasgow, there was a real stooshy over the price of tickets for the Pavarotti concert. The organisers of Glasgow's year as the European City of Culture got the blame, but on reflection this was most unfair because it was a straightforward commercial deal which had little to do with them. Although I think it has to be said that the decision of Scottish Opera to flog tickets and a nosh-up afterwards with Pavarotti at £300 a skull was a bit of a provocation, particularly from an organisation which can only survive on the basis of public subsidies. Now, these things apart, does the programme for 1990 follow the elitist pattern of most major European cultural festivals, or is it breaking new ground? How do the organisers perceive and define Glasgow's culture? Now, I would like to know the answer to these questions.
Inevitably, it's going to be controversial. Dialogue is vital as far as the year is concerned. And no sooner than we started on day one than those key questions were being asked. Whose culture is it? How are we being represented? Is this really Glasgow, or is this a series of images being imposed upon Glasgow?
Aye, but there's the rub. I always thought Glasgow's definition of culture was different. I thought it was more broadly based and more democratic. I thought Glasgow could make a unique contribution to pushing out the parameters of what is generally understood as culture, so as to embrace a much wider range of artistic activities, so as to embrace a much wider range of people. Glasgow has already been successful in promoting a People's Festival of the Arts, Mayfest, which includes a jazz festival which has brought considerable pleasure to many fans. It could be argued that the main arena for music in Glasgow is to be found in the city pubs. Almost any night of the week you can hear the music of your choice, be it jazz, folk music, country and western. And I've come here tonight to hear an old friend who also happens to be a very talented jazz musician, Bobby Wishart. What about the punters? What do they think of Glasgow's year of culture so far?
There's a vibrancy about the city now, regardless of the failing weather. At least Glasgow's swinging, and it doesn't really matter if the sun's shining or not.
I don't think there's been enough popular culture. I think, being put about, but there's been too much concentrated in the centre of Glasgow and not enough out with.
It's good for the image of Glasgow, but it's the same old thing. It's ignoring the people of Glasgow, the people that can't afford to go to all these things. What do you do about them? Maybe it should be more involved in community projects and things to get people helping themselves. Maybe that should be brought to the fore and made more a feature of rather than Pavarotti and that kind of thing, which is all. It's really nice that he's come here, but maybe we should be helping the people more.
The manager of Blackfriars is Alan Cunningham. Alan, are you doing anything special for 1990?
Nothing that we haven't done in 1989. We may be doing a little bit more, but we take the view that what we did last year and the year before will be what we're doing next year. You've watched Bobby tonight. We've had Bobby here before with a youth orchestra. Fabulous. We'll have him back with a youth orchestra, and it will be fabulous. We'll be here, and we'll be adding to Glasgow. 1990 is a passing phase. It's all very nice. We can use it quite well. It's nice to see Glasgow highlighted in a proper fashion, but we'll still be here.
got like all the big names like Pavarotti and that to Glasgow. I mean, it doesn't really make any difference to the normal everyday person.
What does cultural capital of Europe mean? It's a big label for one city every year or every 2 years. And I mean, it means nothing. It means it's more money for the council to cough up on arts and everything. That's fair enough if you're into arts, which I am. But it's just another excuse for a party, that's all.
From a positive point of view, I've lived in London for 6.5 years. I've come back to Glasgow. I've certainly seen a certain amount of boost to Glasgow. But I haven't actually seen the 1990 thing actually taking off.
You've got architects helping like the peripheral estates. Maybe that should be made more a feature of, so that people could be involved in that somehow and be made aware of it, and that's a part of Glasgow as well. It's not just the centre of Glasgow and its cultural experiences. It's like the way you live your life, rather than like just what you do to entertain yourself.
I heard a joke once about a City of Culture saying that they were going to put a tented structure designed by George Wiley over Easterhouse, Castle Mill, Black Hill, all these places, to make the people of these communities feel part of City of Culture. But then again, it's hooding them from all the tourists so they don't see the deprivation. That's what City of Culture's all about, really.
Thanks very much. There are those who argue that 1990 isn't getting to the people. In my youth, this problem was tackled by the old Glasgow Unity Theatre, who brought drama to us in our communities at a time when we thought the straight theatre belonged exclusively to the middle class. It's heartwarming that today Clyde Unity Theatre, along with other groups, is trying to do the same thing in this year of culture.
Neither him nor the gossips are worth the thought.
Oh, God knows it's difficult. Look at my old folks, just when things should be getting easier for them, when they should be getting a little credit for lives well spent. Beth goes and brings down the wrath of the Vennel.
Jimmy.
I mean, what have they done that they should be marked out?
But don't you see? It's because your folks have been well doing, have kept their troubles to themselves. But don't you?
Oh, it's no myself, I can get by. But when I see them jibing at my mother all under the cloak of neighbourly sympathy...
she'd been the sort to hit back.
But she's no, she can't lift her head above Beth's slip.
She had a hell of a nerve coming back here.
Stirring up again, I wonder. Oh, damn him all to hell.
Jim, give over.
Damn him.
Okay.
Damn him.
Sure.
Damn him all to hell.
If only you could loosen up for half an hour.
I talked to writer-director Aileen Ritchie.
The main audience that we're trying to cater for is the audience who would not otherwise get a night out but can come along to a local community centre, have a creche offered to them, meet with people that they know in their local community.
What kind of audiences do you attract, Aileen?
In a sense, it's a kind of a strange mixture. In a sense, the fact that we work in housing schemes and community centres, unemployed centres, means that we can reach a much wider range of audience than would normally be possible. So it ranges really from very young children through to old age pensioners, but always predominantly women, which is a really interesting point, that a lot of Scottish theatre is predominantly images of males that are projected, but on the other hand, it's predominantly a female audience which we tend to attract. City of Culture happened at a good time for us as a theatre company. We'd just begun to be able to get on a professional status. We'd got a little money from the Arts Council, enough money to prime the pump, in a sense, to get professionals in to help us raise the finance for the year. But it was a very difficult process, and I don't think that can be overemphasised, that it's difficult really to get into that network. It was a lot of red tape to cut through to get into City of Culture. Once you're there, it's great, it's a fantastic opportunity.
I don't particularly fancy country and western music, but millions do. And anyway, there can be no self-appointed arbiters of musical taste. In Glasgow, country and western has many enthusiastic fans, and they hope a country music festival will take place in the city this autumn.
we don't just depend on the Year of Culture only for these things. We come here all year round, and there are many other clubs around in the area that deal with all this sort of thing. So we make our own entertainment, really.
Country music it's enjoyable and it's quite happy, and it's if you come here at the weekend you'll see there's a wide range of people come here. You know, there's actually a minister comes here as well, the lady minister.
Every age group can thoroughly enjoy country western music, not just older people, but from teenagers onwards can thoroughly enjoy it. It's all different types of music, it's all different types of group.
The Scottish Development Agency had intended demolishing the club, but after a visit became so convinced of its value as part of Glasgow's culture that they in fact gave it a grant to help refurbish the place. See me, I'm going to see Francie and Josie. The music hall was fundamental to Glasgow's culture and above all reflected the city's unique humour.
Then Sam, he remembered the lass in Lochgilly. He thought of her lips and he thought of her parlour, where one day he knelt to propose. He said he would give her a ring for her finger and offer his heart as a gift. She got so excited she let off a firework to celebrate their wedding day.
Francie and Josie are not part of Glasgow 1990. In fact, Music Hall plays no part in the official programme. Lack of support or interest can hardly be the explanation. Francie and Josie can still pack them in. But what makes them so identifiable with Glasgow?
The humour in this area, it's quite bawdy. I was going to say aggressive, but that sounds like the alternative comedians are very aggressive. And I don't mean it like that. But it's a very forthright kind of humour. And all humour, I think, springs from the environs.
Glasgow's an industrial city, and you know, there was as many comics in the factories as there were on the stage.
Yeah, and a lot of them came from there.
And the best jokes came from the factories. And I suppose, in a way, we're a kind of cult couple of characters.
That means we're getting old.
Well, we're edging on a wee bit. But the thing is, we had this following. And what happens is now that when we had this following originally, they were all young people, you know, because I remember we stopped the car, remember at Ibrox? I says, Ricky, stop the car quick. And here they're all coming out of school.
Oh, you're doing the walk?
And the television had just taken off. We had done the first 6.5 hours. And all the kids were coming out of school, 40 years of age. And all school bags and that. They're all doing the Francie and Josie walk. Couldn't believe it. Well then, now if you come 25 years later on, they've grown up and they come and bring their kids now to see us.
And the kids are liking it.
And they're liking it. They're coming to show them. These are the two guys that we used to watch on the telly. It's amazing. It's unbelievable.
It's a second-hand culture, a second-class culture, in a sense, that a lot of things which Glaswegians enjoy are not celebrated in any way in this city of culture. And that's because, I suppose, the eyes of the world are upon us, and so the portrayal of Glasgow as a city has gone into the hands of people who aren't from here and who aren't representative of Glasgow or of Scotland. And so that becomes the difficulty, that Glasgow as a city is marketed by people who don't really know it.
When the SFA has wanted to celebrate 1990, we've embraced that. When the International Archery Association wants to mount championships in the city, we've embraced that. When the architects of the city wanted to make some statement about architecture, we've embraced that. And indeed, when the bingo halls of the city also wanted to do something special, we've embraced that too.
This bingo hall and another not 50 yards up the street attracts each week 20,000 paying customers. Now you can bet every penny you've got that by the end of this year, more people will have attended bingo sessions in Glasgow than all the events organised in honour of Glasgow being the European City of Culture. I spoke to some of the bingo players, and their lives are virtually untouched by the programme of events for 1990. It appears no one has tried to interest them in theatre productions, concerts, dances and opera, even if they could afford them. And the community events have been largely unheralded. On the other hand, the big prestige events have been so hyped up that they appear to be the be-all and end-all of 1990. This is why it's been dismissed by many as just another bean feast for the well-heeled cultural elite. I was first brought to this place when a child, little more than a toddler. At that time it was known as the Princess Theatre. And here I saw and heard some of the great stars of the Glasgow and Scottish Music Hall. A few years later, when I was a teenager, I was introduced here to the plays of Shaw, of Ibsen and of Brecht. And at that time, me and my mates were engineering apprentices and our wages were diabolically low. And yet we could afford to come here regularly. That was because the admission prices were such that this theatre and its productions were accessible to everyone or to anyone. Now, I wonder if they still adhere to that policy. I asked Giles Havergill, who is now the artistic director of the Glasgow Citizens Theatre.
I think it's important that that balance is maintained if, as we're constantly being told, some people have a lot more money, certainly some people have a great deal less. And I think a publicly subsidised theatre like this should in fact reflect that, if it possibly can, in its seat pricing policy. And I think it's very good that people who have no money and are out of work can simply ring up here, book a seat and come and see a show and can get whatever the next best seat is.
And what do you think the overall impact of the 1990 will be in the cultural or artistic life of the city?
I hope that it isn't just a cultural bonanza for a year. First of all, I think it was based on a very strong central core of work that was going on here anyway. There have been certain rather dramatic importations, but a lot of the work that goes on in Glasgow in 1990 was going on in 1989 and 88 and is going to go on in 91 and 92. But more importantly, we've got to remember there's a lot of Glasgow's miles better, but a lot of its miles worse. And I think this whole year of culture thing is only really acceptable if it's actually going to spin off onto the other side of it as well. Not only give the, as it were, the cultural side a really good time, but also address those problems.
When the announcement was first made of Glasgow as the cultural capital of Europe, it was greeted not with laughter, but with distinct surprise. I think now people know the facts, they've seen what's happening, it's no longer a surprise, but an astonishment of how this city has come out of some of its worst problems over the last 2 decades to become the cultural capital of Europe.
The People's Palace is all about the people. It's about the working people of Glasgow, about their lives and about their struggle for a better life. It's about the history of recent times, and like other museums, it's also about the history of past decades. The People's Palace deals with events and experiences that the people of Glasgow can relate to. Because of its contemporary themes, it's also more controversial. Those who want to revamp the city's image despise the way it exudes pride in Glasgow's proletarian tradition. On the other side, there are those who want it preserved as a kind of sacred shrine to their own brand of socialist beliefs. But a people's museum has to be without ideological prohibitions. Glaswegians readily embrace other folk cultures. Here in the Winter Gardens, also in Glasgow Green, they enjoy a dance group from the Maltese island of Gozo, who have come here to participate in Glasgow's International Folk Festival. OK, so it isn't the Bolshoi, but there again, neither is this. But both seem like a lot of fun. Join me in part 2 for the rest of my journey. This is Kelvin Grove Museum and Art Galleries. It's located on the edge of Kelvin Grove Park, which when the weather's right can be very beautiful. In there are lots of people. Yet this is midweek. At the weekend, sometimes this place can be packed with all age groups, from toddlers to grannies and grandpas. And Glasgow's museums are utilitarian. They're actually widely used by the people. Relative to population, more people go to museums in Glasgow than in any other part of the United Kingdom. In here, there isn't the reverential hush of a people overawed by the surroundings. Instead, there is the hubbub of inquiring human beings.
Obviously, Glasgow is being marketed as the kind of European culture capital of Europe, so there have to be events there that, you know, encourage tourism to come in, and that's very much a business proposition. But as a performer within Scotland, what I'm interested in is seeing the growth of Scottish theatre, and that's vital to us to see that something goes on into 1991. So yes, I want to see as much money as possible being channelled into Indigenous companies, so their growth and strength make sure that their survival continues beyond.
You're now entering the Twilight Zone.
Or, as everyone likes to call it,
Glasgow, City of Culture.
Well, here we are.
Borderline Drama Workshop from Prestwick received a grant in 1990 which enabled them to tour Glasgow. But apart from children's theatre, the Kite Festival, the Rochesi Project and the Art Machine Show are just some of the children's events organised for this year. And a good thing too.
Let's celebrate!
Celebrate what?
Scotland's culture. What's Scotland's culture? Football! The World Cup! How fascinating! Now in Glasgow and Strathclyde we pause for an ecumenical reading from someone in the mould of Pastor Doogie Donnelly, the Vicar of Cowcaddens, the Reverend Jim White, and our very own Minister of Ayrshire, the Reverend Halfside.
Today's lesson will be taken from the new Little Red Book. It will teach us reflection in times past. There came unto us one whose countenance was false, and did lead us up in frenzy, and led us up with chance. It came to pass that one of this number, William of Johnston, did fail the test for dope. The rest declined the test, lest they too prove to be so.
Send him off, send him off, send him off. Send him off, send him off, send him off.
And now there are two instead of one who shall lead the hordes. One brown, the other Roxburgh.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
In Glasgow, anything done with surpassing excellence and a wee bit of panache is considered art. It could be the work of a superb tradesman in the shipyards. It could be the work of a gifted bookish clerk. It could be the work of a marvellous musician or dancer or comedian or a footballer. I'm glad to say that J.B. Priestley and Andy Roxburgh both agree with me.
To say that these men paid their shillings to watch 22 hirelings kick a ball is merely to say that a violin is wood and catgut, that Hamlet is so much paper and ink. For a shilling, the Broodisford United AFC offered you conflict and art. It turned you into a critic, happy in your judgment of fine points, watching a ball shape Iliads and Odysseys for you. And what is more, it turned you into a member of a new community, all brothers together for an hour and a half. For not only had you escaped from the clanking machinery of this lesser life, from work, wages, rent, doles, sick pay, insurance cards, nagging wives, ailing children, bad bosses, idle workmen, but you had escaped with most of your mates and your neighbours. with half the town. And there you were, cheering together, thumping one another on the shoulders, swapping judgments like lords of the earth, having pushed your way through a turnstile into another and altogether more splendid kind of life, hurtling with conflict and yet passionate and beautiful in its art.
Indeed, that's marvellous. The very best players elevate the game to an art form, don't they? I mean, it's like ballet. They're like Nureyevs when they're in full flight.
The first thing is that it's a drama. Football is a drama, you know, above everything else. I mean, forget all the technicalities and so on, and that's where the emotional bit comes in. You know, the winning and losing, you know, the hanging on a thread. Are you going to survive? You know, are you going to be a winner? Or are you going to be a loser? So there's a drama element to it. But then there's the other side of the actual pleasure and the joy of watching someone actually express themselves. See, that's what it's about. It's the word expression, because you can express yourself as an artist can, you know, with paint and brush. You can express yourself as, say, a singer does. Well, a football player expresses himself with a football and with another 21 people on the pitch with him. It's just a different way of doing it. It's their vehicle, their platform. A local lad, for example, David Cooper, who is someone I worked with since he was 17 years old. As you know, he's got this magical left foot that he has. This was a piece of action here which was taken from a Rangers Celtic match, and David here produces skill in this left foot which is quite astonishing. Now he's being pressured, he's in the penalty box, and he just keeps lifting it over the top of everybody. And he does it, he keeps repeating it.
That's a magnificent goal.
It's quite astonishing, that goal. And I mean, Ali McCoist was with me recently at night out, and he was in awe of what he saw there. So just as it says there, sums it up, a kind of magic.
During 1990, dance groups from other countries have come to Glasgow and were made welcome. Yet there's a form of dancing Glaswegians excel at, and so far I've seen little mention of it in the official programme.
There's a bit of classic coming out.
At family dues like weddings or 21st birthday parties, you will invariably find in the course of the evening that the aunts and the uncles get up dancing and tripping the light fantastic. If you hear a tango announced, you can be certain it's one of them that's requested it. And they will be up on the floor there with the starts and the flourishes of the real expert. In all truth, they will be dancing this kind of stuff, not only well, but some of them brilliantly. And the reason is quite simple. At one stage, Glasgow was the ballroom dancing capital of the world. And I'm going to give it a try. Have those dance? At the Plaza Ballroom, afternoon tea dances are held regularly. For 1990, they are being organised in shopping centres and other unlikely venues. But is enough being done for ballroom dancing?
Glasgow just now is a city of culture, but right, Glasgow is a city of dancing. This has been a hot point of Britain for dancing. You go anywhere, you can always tell a Glasgow dancer.
Glasgow people deserve something like this. There's so many people of our age group that don't get a chance at all to see anything like this. I don't see why not. The city of culture is forgetting their own people.
There's nothing for us.
Yeah.
Nothing for us. We can't afford £75 for Pavarotti. And when you get to our age and you're on a small income, you just can't afford all these things. And they said in Paris they didn't know there was a festival on. Well, the likes of us, we don't know there's a festival on.
The Raring to Go Festival will be aimed at the over 50s. It will include writing workshops, aerobics, and a young at heart tea dance.
As far as Glaswegians are concerned, the ones who are directly involved, participating in the event, are probably having a wow of a time. However, there's a large number of people who are either prevented from becoming involved or have chosen not to be involved. And we've treated that as a challenge by the end of the year to try to find a way that every Glaswegian relates in their own particular way to what's happening in Glasgow this year.
And there is that whole sense that everybody in Glasgow is under scrutiny, that the marketing of the city goes from end to end, and that the fact that you live here means that you've got to sort of justify your own culture in some way, or say what you're doing for it as though it's something that everybody has to contribute to. The fact that you live there and exist there and thrive there and go on doing the cultural activities that you do 365 days a year is somehow not enough.
For the majority of Glaswegians, their cultural and social life is centred on the pub or club. This is where they meet friends, talk, debate, argue, tell jokes and philosophise. At one time, the pubs were bastions of male chauvinism. Today, it's different. My wife and daughters use our local just as much as the old man. It's a traditional pub, which we prefer to the more glossy wine bars that have mushroomed in recent years, particularly in the city centre. Lawrence is a friend who's come here straight from his work. He plays violin for the SNO. That deserves a drink. For some, all 1990 means is extended pub hours. Eamon McCluskey is the young mine host.
The music was quite exciting. As much as we wouldn't notice it so far, the year of culture has not done a great deal for us. The anticipation was there before it came, but now the year's arrived, it seems to have advanced good so far.
Anyway, your wee pub's part of my culture.
I'm very pleased to hear it, James.
I suppose I better pay you for that, don't
That would be very kind of you, sir. Still be here next year if you pay me.
Another pal, Fraser Spears, a hospital photographer, plays the moofie in Some Mean Blues. When I look at the events organised by the official committee, there's a series of concerts by world-renowned orchestras, which is a very good thing. But I can't see any difference between a festival in Paris, Strasbourg or Edinburgh. It's the same elitist concept and presumably the same cultural elite that will be going there. What's different then in Glasgow's City of Culture year?
I think in the grassroots side there are a lot of people like ourselves who have tried to hijack the festival and get out of it what we possibly can for ourselves. Really, in a sense, crumbs from the rich man's table, as somebody else described it. Very small amounts of money can make a tremendous difference for groups like ourselves. So really, what it will cost to sort of light the show for Pavarotti could be the budget for a company like ourselves for a whole year. So I think around the city there are pockets of people working very, very hard at making that money work for them and getting some benefit out of that. And that's work in a sense which won't really be highlighted very much in any way.
This is the 800th anniversary of the Glasgow Fair. I suppose it would have been celebrated anyway, but 1990 gets it more noticed. It's free, as was the big day of pop and rock music. It's this sort of event which attracts families and those for whom orchestral concerts and opera might have no appeal. Although what appeals can often be determined by what you can afford.
We come from East End, and this is out this world. There's so much going for it, it's no real. For families, everybody.
We've actually just come through from Fife for the day, especially to see it, because we used to live in Glasgow and it's marvellous. I could do it all the time.
I never knew it was known about me. My geez, I'm amazed and really amazed. It's marvellous.
considering we stay here, you're usually the last people to go and visit places.
Yeah, there's more foreigners than there is actually people from Glasgow.
Now, what about other events for the City of Culture Year? Have you been to any of them?
No, this is the first.
This is the first.
Well, we passed through the town and seen the buskers and people in the town and that, you know, it's...
You've not been to other events?
I've not been to any events, no.
Now, why is that?
Well, there's a lot of... doesn't really appeal to me, you know. No, like opera and things like that, no, it's... not my scene, sort of.
Oh, we were at the big day?
The big day, yeah, we enjoyed that immensely.
That's good.
That was tremendous, that's one of the best things the Glasgow District Council have put their mind to.
And we are going to go and to see Glasgow's Glasgow now, aren't we?
Aye, now they've brought it down to £1.
Aye, we still
it's
do
a bit expensive, £4 to go and see it, but came to their senses.
I think it's been a very good variety. Some of it's been a wee bit offbeat for me, but that's just a matter of taste. But I think it's been a wide enough variety for everyone. You know?
Same here, I think it's a very good thing, and I hope that we'll get into a wee bit more of it as time goes on.
Year by
Before
year,
the
I think
year
it's
wears
a
out.
yearly event. You know, this kind of
Hope
atmosphere.
it's not just a one-off thing, and it's something which continues after the Year of Culture.
I suppose my real feeling is that the impact is not so much on how many people are going to go to see the Great British Art Exhibition. It isn't quite that, but the whole thinking in the city will change, maybe, and the confidence that will come will give people a chance to. Where would we have been airing this subject on television had it not been the Glasgow City of Culture? That is perhaps the impact.
There are many thousands of people benefiting from the year in ways that are difficult to understand because these projects take place almost exclusively in old people's homes, in prisons, in schools, in community centres, and often aren't available to the visitors to this city. And therefore, I suppose that's the quieter face of 1990 as far as the media is concerned, but nevertheless an important part of our overall strategy.
If culture has no boundaries, then prisons should have no fear for the artist.
And a long sea voyage.
Taking culture to Berlin, it does have certain advantages, such as a captive audience. Although some of these young remand inmates came to hear itinerant poets, thinking it was the title of a pop group.
With only a chink of light from the keyhole. But don't be alarmed, ladies and gentlemen.
Glasgow's miles better when you live in a house that fungus grows better in your home than out. Glasgow's miles better. Tell that to the man who makes his bed in George Square. Glasgow's miles better when a forgotten generation looks for hope but only finds drugs. Glasgow's miles better if you're a city gent wheeling and dealing in money most people can just dream of. Aye, that's the people that Glasgow can only be miles better for.
As usual, claps and slaps hyphenated with curses armour-plated, lance her on the floor where she can fall no lower than this he has encouraged her to stoop to. Another night, another fight, him with his failure, her with his hobby. The voice of his authority has woken the child who screams in harmony with her mother. And when he's done having nocturnal fun, she dries her disgrace, wipes the blood from her face, and hums her baby back to the safety of sleep, as usual.
That's what it's called empties. It's about your head being empty and your ginger bottle being empty. Sitting down to write creatively when the King's Softy ice cream van that sounds like a TARDIS stops and the paw brown slippers going with empties tucked under the arm. To wait behind the Star Bar, Peter Pan Lucky Bag, Helter Skelter, bacon and brown sauce, crisp, sport gum, iron brew, chew, lemonade, ice lolly, single nugget, pizza and chip, onion ring, hickory smoked nut, monster munch, penny bag, people who get on your wick because of the time they take to make up their minds, which isn't really any time at all, and you realise you're just a nippy sweetie, because when you go back into the house, you won't be able to write about anything, cause.
What did you think of the poems tonight?
Some of it was alright, but some of it was a lot of shit as well. Didn't understand half it. Half it was said, so it wasn't even rhyming or nothing, no, so I thought poetry was mere rhyme.
Well, it states reality, the way the world is today, especially Glasgow. And the tramps and everything, running about the streets, the poverty.
I don't get gone to much things like that when I'm outside because I'm like one of the poor ones. When I'm outside, you know, I hardly get anything for us now, since I've been in here as well. It's been a wee bit harder, but I'd enjoy it. If I went to like a poetry meet, reading or anything like that.
I was very pleased at the response that the boys gave. A lot of people probably thought that poetry reading in a prison wouldn't exactly be the best way for the boys to spend the night, but they were great. They seemed to really enjoy it as well.
Basically, probably they get told they can either stay in themselves for another hour or come down and listen to poetry. So I think it is quite, you know, they could have a talk and a smoke together for another hour. So I think that would be the first point, that the reason why they were in the hall. Then maybe if they enjoyed it once they were there, that's bonus for us, of course, I think.
I thought the evening was very interesting, and I actually felt quite sad leaving when everyone else was left in there.
It is Glasgow's European City of Culture year. Have any of you anything to say about the official programme?
We'll still be here in Mayfest, they'll still be here in Glasgow Culture, will still be here after all the hype's gone. I think they've confused culture with art, and they bring particular forms of art here so that they can encourage sponsorship and so-called jobs, the kind of jobs they think are important.
If the City of Culture year was geared for the Glasgow people, then Pavarotti would have played Berlin.
What will be left are clear architectural legacies. Those are the simple things to point to. The new International Concert Hall, the refurbishment of the McClellan Galleries in Sauchiehall Street, the transformation of Glasgow's old Museum of Transport into the tramway, the upgrading of 40 or 50 buildings, a massive stone cleaning and floodlighting scheme, the arches underneath Central Railway Station, a lot of cleaning up which has happened because of the focus that the year has provided. But as important as all of that has been enabling so many organisations to realise ambitions.
"1990 has at least brought us this place, sooner rather than later. It's the new Glasgow Concert Hall, which is actually a replacement for the old St Andrews Halls, which burnt down about 28 years ago. Now, I went dancing in the St Andrews Halls. I heard jazz in that hall. I heard great singers like Bjorling and Gilly. I heard the Scottish National Orchestra. I also attended political rallies and indeed spoke at political rallies in the St Andrews Halls. In other words, the St Andrews Halls was an important part of Glasgow's culture. Now, I wonder if this place, in its own way, will match up to that. Well, let's find out. First of all, it looks very impressive. It will hold 2,400, has 7 bars, an exhibition area and a function suite. It's to be officially opened on the 5th of October, but will be in business from September the 20th. For community concerts, people will be bussed in from the housing schemes. The events manager is Andy Morris, who was a musician with the SNO.
The first thing and most important thing is to get the people of Glasgow into the complex and to make it a happy place. And to that end, we have a restaurant open all day and also welcoming foyers and bars so that people can come along and feel happy in the venue. We'll take it from there once we've got them here.
Now, what kind of different uses can it be put to?
Well, the hall's multi-purpose use rests mainly on the fact that the stage is in 10 lifts and the seating in the main arena can be removed. So we can go anything from a complete ice rink down to the prom concerts.
Now, whether a place is accessible or not often depends on the pricing policy for tickets. Is there any thought being given to that at all?
Well, largely speaking, the events that we ourselves will be promoting will be priced at favourable prices so that even for some of the greatest international orchestras and stars, the bulk of our seats will still be under £10. Promoters, of course, when they hire the hall, are free to do their own pricing.
Yeah. But when you're doing it and grant-aided organisations are doing it, will there be some consideration for the unemployed or old age pensioners?
Oh, I think very much so, as is seen with the established orchestras who are grant-aided. They will continue their policies in the concert hall of offering concessions to all of these areas.
Now tell me, Andy, would we really have had this hall this year if it hadn't been for the Glasgow being the European City of Culture?
Well, I think it would be honest to say that 1990 has brought the Hall to us sooner rather than later.
I think it was a marvellous opportunity to completely change the thinking about Glasgow, to stop relegating Glasgow to the cliche which has existed since the 40s, indeed probably since the 30s, about it just being violent and poor and miserable and so on. It gives an opportunity to completely change that. And I think that that's what they've done by grabbing at 1990, by bolstering the existing arts organisations so that everybody's able to put on, you know, rather more.
I think what this year has done has created a lot of expectation. There's been a lot of money put into workshops, into training for young people in particular in communities, and that has in a sense whetted their appetite for what the arts can offer them.
I wish the bus would hurry up, for I'm going to another do, one which comes to us from Glasgow's Gaelic tradition. It's a ceilidh in the city halls. But like the jazz festival, it isn't part of the programme for 1990. And here's where the confusion starts. It's hard sometimes to work out where 1990 begins and ends. In fact, some say if you have a successful house party, you might find it claimed as part of the official programme.
I come from Glasgow. I think I'm very proud of Glasgow. I think it makes me proud of Glasgow. I think there's a lot of interest generated in the city. I do my job, I deal with a lot of people from different parts of the world, and it makes you good. It makes think it sort of creates a better image for Glasgow. So for me, it makes me feel good where I come from.
Overall, it's really been great. I've seen a lot of local culture, and I like the culture that they have imported for display in the museums and the shows. I think the city has done a lot to celebrate this era of culture.
I don't see much difference in what's on in Glasgow normally. There's Mayfest, which is on every year, and there's the Jazz Festival, which is on every year, but there's nothing extra particularly that has caught my eye so far.
But don't let's forget, there's still more to come. There's the Macintosh retrospective, the Van Gogh centenary exhibition, the big lantern street procession, and lots more for buy.
I think it's been a good spread of entertainment to suit everybody.
But Mayfest is on every year. It's not part of the City of Culture.
No, but I think this year it's been enhanced by the City of Culture ethos, if you like, and people are coming out more, they're more aware of it. They seem to be ready to come out to more entertainment, if you like.
I think it's very much for the sort of upper classes. It doesn't really filter down to the sort of level that we are at. I think it's very much for the people with the money, with the ability to go and see the opera, and it really doesn't represent the views of the typical Glaswegian. I mean, I'm English myself, so maybe my view isn't representative of, you know, the views of typical Glaswegian, but I just really feel that talking to taxi drivers and people like that, they don't really feel they're getting much from it.
It takes in all attitudes of people's, probably what they want to see, art, stage shows, things like this, ceilidhs. It brings everything back to people of Glasgow. They get the opportunity to see what they want. Very good.
I don't know anybody that's had a job, any Glaswegian person that's had a job through the City of Culture. It's just got nothing to do with anybody that's lived in Glasgow, nothing. It's just expensive events with people brought in from here, there and everywhere that nobody in Glasgow can afford. That's it.
It will be unfortunate if for some 1990 is remembered only for Pavarotti, Sinatra and the concert hall. And one more thing. Did the city take on too much in dedicating a full year to the celebration? Other cities were not so ambitious. In Berlin, the festival ran for 8 months. In Paris, it lasted for about half of that. But then, lack of ambition has never been one of Glasgow's weaknesses.
The impression of the year is one of getting a sense of the cultural mix. And the evaluation that will occur on whether the year has been successful hopefully will happen at the end, after people have had an opportunity to experience these many different things in their own particular ways.
So what's the verdict? Well, right from the start, people were telling me, you're a culture. It's a big con job. There's nothing in it for the punters. The organisers are really only concerned about the big glossy events. And they more or less convinced me. But in the making of this programme, I've got to acknowledge that this is not true. There's a hell of a lot going on in Glasgow in 1990. But a lot of ordinary people, both here and abroad, still don't seem to know about it. If there is a problem, it's not in the lack of events. The basic trouble is that it's failed to capture the imagination of those Glaswegians who seem determined not to participate. Now, I'd hoped that 1990 would be a year in Glasgow in which the Glaswegians would have a party and then invite all their fellow punters from all over Europe, if they fancied it, to come and join them. Well, it hasn't quite been like that. Culture which includes the fine arts but reaches out to many-sided and diverse activities of all its citizens.